So typically, as counseling sessions are happening, a person says, I have anxiety. As the therapist, you know the general categories of which you laid out very adequately: generalized anxiety disorder, or is this specific to something more of a phobia, or is it panic disorders, something that comes up on us. But even once we begin to isolate, well, this may be more of a specific phobia, like I'm terrified to public speak, and every time it happens, the anxiety is debilitating. So then you could say, even once we begin to understand the major categories, we still have to do more than that. We have to really personalize the anxiety to us. So I have before me Beck's anxiety inventory that you previously mentioned, and just I'll read some of these categories, and then you talk to me how we would assess this. This is on kind of a sliding scale. The things that are read, like not at all, mildly, moderately, or severely. So again, we have the same idea of scale, such as talking about anxiety: numbness and tingling, feeling hot, wobbling in the legs, unable to relax, fearing the worst, lightheaded, heart pounding, unsteady, terrified and afraid, feeling of choking, hand trembling, fearing of losing control, difficulty breathing, fear of dying. We would start raising some of these, and to some people they will say, yeah, my anxiety appears, I feel like I'm choking and I can't breathe, and others wouldn't relate to that. Right. So talk to us about this level of assessment.
Well, so to go back to the differentiation between worry and anxiety, anxiety is experienced in the mind and in the body. And one of the reasons that I don't like to have people take inventories by themselves or send it to them and have them bring it in with them is that often to get an accurate response to these questions, that most of the time the person hasn't thought about these specific issues ever before. So in discussing it with them in a conversation, you're more likely to get an accurate feedback. And in fact, it can be very good to repeat it in the next session. So they now have had time to think about it for a week or so and go back through them again. It's a mistake to get in a hurry. You've mentioned that earlier. You have to take your time to do this well, do this meaning diagnosing people and treating people properly. You can't hurry it. You have to get a feel for the situation. And as the client comes in, the person comes in for help, they have now begun to think about this between sessions, and they're going to have some light bulbs. They're going to go, oh, now I know why I was experiencing this 6 months or a year ago, and I never thought it was called anxiety. Or I know why people, I went to the ER with palpitations and I thought I was having a heart attack, but they said no, the lab results said no. So it is a learning process. But it is reassuring to people that you can eventually help a person get to the place where they feel secure with you, to trust you enough to hear how this is described and how other people experience it and what the course of treatment would be. And it normalizes it to a degree. It's not you're not the only one in town. You're certainly not the only man or woman that's experienced these matters. And I had thought about it earlier that when sports figures and people with a big name nationally get out, like Terry Bradshaw did years ago and talked about his mental disorder or bipolar disorder, that's helpful to people because he's a trustworthy guy. People look up to him, they know who he is, and he's not ashamed to tell the truth about himself. And that helps all the rest of us to be a little more open and honest about our mental struggles and strains.
Only one final comment about assessment, that most people want to go to a counselor. They want to have a few sessions. They want the diagnosis, in session 2 or 3, right. Told to them, yeah. And the treatment plan by session 5 and be healed by session 8.
Right.
And I think that's much more common. There is the issue in there of money, and time. And I think that, to reiterate again, this is a journey. This takes time. It could, people need to think in months, not in weeks. in regard to getting to the real bottom of what's going on.
And what could be so helpful to that process is for the person who's coming in to receive counseling be willing to bring someone in with them at least once who knows them well, that can give their perspective. That's enormously beneficial to everyone. Yes, people want a quick fix, but it is really, there's a lot of skill building involved in this. And you get the assessment. Now, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to live your life differently to treat this? Or what techniques are you going to use so that you will do better? Well, we need other people to encourage us to continue. We might think of a lot of good ideas. I'm going to go fishing more often, or I'm going to go read a book that makes me feel less anxious. But we don't sustain those treatments, those self-care activities usually. Most of us don't, unless we have someone in it with us who knows what we're doing and encourages us and, quite frankly, holds us accountable. Because if we don't take care of ourselves with our anxiousness, it diminishes our availability to the people that look to us, our wives, our children, our friends. And there's a responsibility there. In my view, as a created being, we have a responsibility to be available to the people God put in our life. And that's greatly diminished if we let this run out of control and we don't attend to it.
So assessment will heighten self-awareness. Mm-hmm. Self-awareness, even with the help of a good Christian therapist, usually comes slowly, not quickly. Right. And we are going to need community to ultimately just not only to heal, we're going to need some community even to understand, because someone's going to have to say, I know you don't think this, but, and there's going to be a great deal of learning in that process.